It was only a matter of time before the warning signs became deafening. As former President Donald Trump doubled down on his sweeping 30% tariff threat against steel, EV batteries, and auto parts, Mexico and Canada were silently laying tracks, literally. In a move that has left Washington reeling, Mexico has officially joined Canada in launching a $120 billion trade corridor that sidesteps U.S. soil entirely. The result? A mega-project designed to move everything from soybeans to steel coils without a single U.S. customs checkpoint. And this time, Trump isn't just upset, he's going absolutely nuts. If you want to stay ahead of what's really happening behind the scenes, go ahead and subscribe, give this video a like, and tap the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Let's jump in. The corridor that changes everything. The Northern Corridor, now backed by both Canada and Mexico, is a rail and port superhighway connecting the Pacific Ocean to the Gulf of Mexico. Spanning over 9,200 kilometers of reinforced track, the corridor is strategically designed to divert cargo that would traditionally pass through the U.S. This includes EV batteries, lumber, soy, and steel, goods that fuel the American economy. Reuters and customs analysts have already tallied the potential fallout. If even a fraction of this trade shifts to the new route, the U.S. government stands to lose $4 billion annually in customs fees and merchandise processing. That doesn't include the indirect damage to American businesses that rely on timely, affordable imports, from automakers in Michigan to retailers in Texas. With fewer goods crossing U.S. borders, shipping delays and price hikes are likely to ripple through the supply chain, making everyday items more expensive and jobs less secure for American workers already feeling economic pressure. Washington's fee machine in jeopardy. Here's the kicker: the Northern Corridor isn't waiting for permission. Trains are already running. Ports are expanding. Infrastructure is being modernized at lightning speed. In Prince Rupert, Canada, billions have already been spent on high-speed rail upgrades and new container terminals. Meanwhile, Mexico is pumping another $1.6 billion into port expansion and highways linking the Sonora-Durango region to the broader corridor, creating a seamless trade artery that's already attracting global investors and logistics firms looking to bypass U.S. bottlenecks. This is not just about shipping routes. This is a complete end run around Washington's tariff system. Every shipment that bypasses the U.S. border means fewer tolls collected, fewer processing fees charged, and less control over North American trade. That's why U.S. customs analysts are calling it regulatory seepage, a slow but steady bleed of control and capital that Washington may struggle to contain without serious policy reform. Factories feeling the pressure. Trump's proposed 30% tariff might have been designed to protect American manufacturing, but it's already backfiring. According to a recent Auto Parts Association survey, over 40% of suppliers are considering shifting production to Mexico or Canada to dodge the uncertainty. And as materials become harder to source domestically, U.S. factories are feeling the strain. Take Detroit, the beating heart of the American auto industry. As more Canadian steel and Mexican batteries opt for the corridor route, U.S. automakers are forced to bid higher just to keep their production lines moving. This raises vehicle prices, delays production schedules, and places thousands of assembly line jobs at risk. Smaller suppliers and tool-and-die shops are especially vulnerable, facing tight margins and limited inventory flexibility. If the corridor becomes the new norm, these local businesses could collapse under the pressure, setting off a chain reaction of job losses across multiple states. Panama Canal on rails. Supporters of the corridor are calling it a Panama Canal on rails, and for good reason. The time savings alone are staggering. A day's reduction in sailing plus tariff immunity can reduce delivered costs by up to 7%. For Asian exporters, this means a faster, cheaper way to reach inland markets in Canada and Mexico without ever touching a U.S. port. Even more troubling for Washington, the corridor has sparked an infrastructure race. Canada is already moving 23 million tons of cargo through Prince Rupert annually, and that number is growing. Mexico's Manzanillo port, meanwhile, is being dredged and reinforced to handle 10 million containers a year. That's more than double last year's volume and quickly approaching Los Angeles levels. Major global shipping firms like Maersk and COSCO have already shown interest, recognizing the corridor's ability to streamline logistics and cut fuel costs. This could reshape trans-Pacific trade flows for decades to come. No U.S. stamp required. Perhaps the most game-changing aspect of the Northern Corridor is the digital infrastructure supporting it. Back in March, U.S. Customs advisors floated the idea of a North America single-window system. Canada and Mexico took the ball and ran. They developed a blockchain-based platform that allows them to share customs data without ever sending a byte through U.S. servers. This means that documentation, origin certificates, and processing are handled entirely outside of U.S. oversight. The implications are massive. U.S. Customs and Border Protection typically charges a $32.71 merchandise processing fee per entry. In fiscal 2024 alone, CBP collected over $1.26 billion from this fee. But once that data travels on Canada and Mexico's private ledger, that revenue drops to zero. Speed is the new power. Shipping speed is another area where the corridor shines. A United Nations study on trade shows that digital single-window systems can cut cargo clearance times from 5 days to just 24 hours. The corridor's early pilots suggest even better numbers. Train carriers are already reporting 4 to 5 hour gains over traditional border crossings like Laredo, Texas. That's a full shift saved per load, a time gain that high-value shipments are willing to pay a premium for. As more freight moves this way, traditional U.S. ports will find themselves scrambling to compete. Trump's tariff gamble. Former President Trump's 30% blanket tariff was intended as a show of strength, a bold declaration of economic nationalism. But in trying to wall off American markets, the strategy may have accelerated a quiet revolt. Instead of negotiating softer terms, Canada and Mexico responded with concrete plans and multi-million-dollar infrastructure investments. The corridor isn't a future threat, it's a current reality. By the time Trump's tariffs officially take effect on August 1st, trains will already be moving goods bypassing the U.S. entirely. This leaves American policymakers with a harsh truth: leverage has shifted. What was meant to isolate foreign competitors has only empowered them to work together, reshaping trade routes and minimizing U.S. influence. Washington now faces the challenge of responding to a trade network that's already operational and increasingly attractive to global exporters looking for stability and savings. The economic ripple effect. The most immediate victims of this shift will be American workers. GM has already paused its Bright Drop EV van production line in Ontario, sending 1,200 workers home. Experts warn that one cancelled production line can have a domino effect across supply chains, wiping out tens of thousands of jobs indirectly. Consider this: over 10 million Americans, nearly 5% of the private sector, rely on auto industry employment. Every job lost at an assembly plant can cascade into lost income for truck drivers, suppliers, welders, and even food vendors. If corridor efficiencies continue to draw business north and south of the U.S. border, that ripple effect could become a wave. Retail prices and consumer impact. Shifts in trade routes don't just affect factories, they hit consumers directly. The National Retail Federation has warned that even a modest 1 to 2% decline in U.S. port volume could raise prices by 4 cents on the dollar for imported goods. That adds up quickly in everything from electronics to groceries. And remember, all this economic fallout comes before Trump's 30% tariffs officially begin. The Northern Corridor isn't a backup plan. It's a bold rejection of the U.S.-dominated trade framework. It's a roadmap for Canada and Mexico to build their own destiny, one that may no longer include Washington as a gatekeeper. Digital ghosts and economic realignment. The blockchain technology powering the corridor offers a sobering realization. Washington can no longer rely on paper trails and customs stamps to enforce its will. With real-time data exchanges and smart contracts validating trade between Canada and Mexico, the old methods are becoming obsolete. This isn't just a digital upgrade, it's an economic realignment. By shifting documentation and customs clearance to a bilateral system, the Northern Corridor rewrites who gets paid, who has authority, and who sets the rules. It effectively ghosts the U.S. from its own neighborhood. The writing is on the wall. Trump's tough-on-trade agenda has pushed Canada and Mexico to take matters into their own hands. In doing so, they may have created the most powerful trade corridor in North American history. With ports booming, trains rolling, and software ghosting U.S. oversight, the Northern Corridor is not just a bypass, it's a seismic shift. So, what happens next? Will Washington swallow its pride and adjust course? Or will Mexico and Canada continue to wave freight trains past the border guards while the U.S. counts its losses? One thing is clear: whoever builds the infrastructure writes the playbook. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Is this the beginning of a new North American order,